this is Talkin to America. I'm your host, Aaron Zellman. Our guest today is Len Savage. Len first was on our program November 1st of 2005, talking about the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. And he's back again today. Some things have happened since November, and you can consider this program an update. You and JPFO were noted in the CRS report. This is also known as the Congressional Research Service of October 5. And I think maybe we should tell people what that report is about and what has been going on since then.
Great. And a pleasure to be here. The CRS report basically put in writing for Congress in a memorandum that verifies what JPFO and I knew all along, and that's that ATF did not have any testing procedures. And I don't think the impact of that memorandum has been fully impacted yet, because every case prior to the Wren case, which happened in November, which was also after that report, weren't running with any procedures and could make it up as they went along and could manufacture evidence. Nobody would ask any questions. And nobody's even looked into the previous cases and how many people now are sitting in prison because the ATF manufactured evidence against them.
You're sure our government would do something that dastardly?
Well, I wouldn't have believed it until I saw it with my own eyes. Personally experienced it. U.S. v. Wren was a case that happened last November. I was a technical advisor for the defense and was supposed to testify as an expert witness in the case. About midway through the trial, there seemed to be a little bit of pandemonium going on, and the outcome of that was that the government dismissed all the firearms charges against Mr. Wren if Mr. Wren would accept a plea bargain of one count of mail fraud and one count of a false statement to an ATF officer. And I think they said they would recommend the sentence of a $100 fine and a 6-month probation. And being 60 years old, he took the deal, or spend another $500,000 to continue the fight. That's the problem. You're worn down financially. It was just a very interesting trial, and I think in the future its importance will play out. But what was important more than anything is that the judge finally picked up on the fact that the ATF added a conversion device and it had altered the evidence to make it go full auto. She told them that they could test the evidence in front of the jury, but only if they removed the conversion devices. And they were embarrassed by this, and that's when all things kind of fell apart there in that trial. The ATF since then certainly let me know that they didn't appreciate my presence at the trial, and more recently has sent me some paperwork that would be termed interesting, to say the least, possibly threatening.
Before we get to the paperwork, Len, let's just spend one more moment or so on the government's attitude towards even its own prosecutor during the trial when they realized that they're going to lose.
Oh, goodness, yes. Out in the hallway when this ruckus was raised, I was sitting on a bench, and the U.S. prosecutor, Mr. Jonathan Gasser, came walking by, and he got a cell phone because they're allowed to have cell phones in federal buildings, and just a very interesting conversation. Even just the one end, and I don't care. I don't care. He kept repeating. He says, "You can have this position. I'm only temporary anyway. I'm only acting." And then he hangs up, and he looks at me. He goes, "That was the U.S. Attorney General Alberto Gonzales chewing me out for offering Mr. Wren such a deal," and stormed off. And I just stood there open mouth. I couldn't believe it. The Attorney General of the United States was actually monitoring this one little lowly trial and what the ATF was doing, and was upset because the U.S. Attorney pretty well figured out something fraudulent was going on and pulled the plug on those charges. So it appeared to be. I can't tell by trying to read all the spin that happened after the trial. Something happened that was very interesting, that a cabinet-level individual would be monitoring such a trial that shouldn't mean anything.
That is fascinating. Well, you were going to mention some letters that you received from ATF in the last month or so. You want to tell people about their arbitrary and capricious approach to doing business?
Well, we now have some things documented I would like to share with you. One, we now know, and it's in writing, that the ATF is above the law. We've always asserted that they acted that way, but now they assert that they are. On April 4th, an assistant director wrote me a piece of correspondence and specifically stated that the employees of the ATF are statutorily exempted from having to follow the NFA or GCA.
Explain to people what the NFA GCA is.
All right. The NFA is the National Firearms Act, and the GCA is the Gun Control Act of 1968. For the most part, these are the two statutes that the ATF exists for. That their existence is only required because of these two statutes, and that's their sole purpose in life, to define whether or not things are under the purview of the NFA or GCA. What this means is that an employee of the ATF could turn around and send you through the U.S. mail a machine gun. No paperwork, no nothing. Say, Mr. Zellman, we've now declared this not to be a machine gun. We'd like you to have this. We'd like you to possess this. This isn't even a firearm. This is off the books, off the record, and it's all yours. All right? And then they could come back later and saying, what are you doing possessing that? You know possession of that's against the law. We want to prosecute you. Did you know? And if you said, hey, wait a minute, but they illegally transferred it to me, then no. You could be prosecuted for illegal possession. That's something that the government has given to you and put in your possession in the first place. They threatened me with it, and again, they documented it. I couldn't believe it. They gave me the item and says, this item is against the law and needs to be registered, and if you don't do it, you need to abandon it or we're going to prosecute you. After they gave me the item. But they said, well, didn't you violate the law by illegally transferring it? Oh, no, we're statutorily exempted. We can't be in violation of these two statutes. And they pointed out, cited, the verse in the law that says that's it. It's even more arbitrary. When the most recent article in SWAT magazine, Boot the BATF, which was about your efforts and mine and a particular, the DVD, BATF fails the test. When that happened, the government seemed to be rather upset at that. And then immediately after that went to print, I received 3 letters in succession, all dated the same day, all negative. And I won't even go into the technical aspects of the letters, and they were technically wrong. But there's some things involved in some of this paperwork that's on its face is far more intriguing and far more valuable than just the technical things that the ATF got wrong. I thought it was rather interesting that about basically a week after they received their copy, I received these 3 nasty letters all dated the same day. So it's been a tough time.